Law Simplified with Justice, the new informative, educative, and thought-provoking program is what you need to keep abreast with law and politics. This exciting and truly refreshing program is anchored by Justice Maduforo, a solicitor.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a soul-searching discussion here with my colleague. We've been dissecting sole responsibility under the immigration rule, those under 18 and those above 18 years of age as well.
Law Simplified with Justice understands that law is a powerful driver to human behavior. It is therefore poised to simplify the law and get you to take action.
We'll bring it to your doorstep and simplify it the way that you will understand.
Contact Justice by calling 07931 727 597 or email lawsimplifiedwithjustice@yahoo.co.uk. Law Simplified with Justice, bringing the best to the audience.
Fantastic. So you need to move to the next level.
Yes.
And okay, because as you were saying this, you were explaining some terms, which is why the memory of understanding prompted my mind. I thought it was good for us to share it a little bit now, quickly moving out from there. Having said that, the viewers would look at now and want to say, okay, this contract, I engage into it on this basis, and it was oral, or some would say it's written, and we've engaged into that. At this point now, what else shall we do? Now, the question that comes in here is that the commercial aspect of the contract, which is what we are dealing with in this program now. But obviously, as you mentioned earlier, these are all contracts. They are all embedded as contracts, but with certain exceptions, having now moved away to commercial contract. The question now will be, all the time, will be that what are the things that constitutes commercial contracts in such a way that I would say that I want to go into contract with this person now, and you can term it commercial.
Okay.
What are the things? Because you mentioned some issues of engaging accountants, in lawyers. That could be that. But what about those who are not up to that stage to engage this service of these professionals? Obviously, we're talking about big businesses now or medium businesses now. But where will these moderate, small-scale businesses come in terms of a commercial contract?
Brilliant. Small-scale businesses can draft up a contract. A contract doesn't have to be 20 pages or 40 pages for it to be a commercial contract. The most important thing is for you to get the principles right. You have to have the names of the parties. You have to have the scope of the contract. You have to have the payment terms. You have to limit your liability under the contract. You have to have things like liquidated damages for bigger contracts. And for smaller contracts, that might not be applicable. You have to have things like the termination and what constitutes a breach of contract. Then you have to have the governing law of the contract. So with these principles, when inserted or when drafted up, will constitute a commercial contract. So you don't need to be a big company for you to do this, because it could take you just 6 pages to be able to draft up the principles. The most important thing is to get your scope right, get your payment terms right, get your termination and suspension clause right, and get your governing law right.
Okay, anybody can do this contract. Can anybody do that? It's a DIY thing, isn't it?
No, I will not suggest that it's a DIY thing, because those terms are very, very, very technical. You need to be careful when you are drafting it, because in so many cases, you may end up drafting up a liability that the business might not be able to carry. So that is why it's important for you to always seek advice when drafting up a contract.
Saying that, Mr. Nyaragoro, something prompted us as well, because, while you were giving out this in-depth explanation of that, which is very much useful here. Now, another question that comes to mind is why these contracts were being drafted along the line, and then somebody decides to do it. Obviously, your own candid opinion is that there are technical areas, and it's important that you seek legal advice before you draw that up. Now, what about people who just feel like, listen, I know exactly what I want here, and they drafted? Do you see unforeseen circumstances coming in, and probably which this person didn't foresee at the time of drafting up such contract? And then, do you see, is there any opportunity or any chance whereby something unforeseen, which was not earlier on embedded in the contract, obviously done in a DIY form, can it at any time crop up at all?
Yes, there are so many unforeseen circumstances when you draft up contracts. For example, if you draft up a contract without a limitation on liability clause, that means that when there's a problem with the contract, your limit, you have unlimited liability. For example, if you draft up a contract of £10,000 and there's no limitation cap, when something goes wrong, since you have unlimited liability, you might be exposed to £100,000 on a contract of £10,000. You see, so that's why it's good to seek advice when you're drafting up those clauses, because they are very important. Those are unforeseen circumstances that could arise in a contract.
I see. It's quite very thoughtful. What you said there. Because obviously, cost is a very essential part here.
Yes.
When people decide to do it themselves, and they consider cost. Do you subscribe for a company that is projecting towards a bigger outlook to have a very shady contract within itself? Because if this country this company is expecting a bumper harvest, it has a very beautiful forecast in terms of its economy and in terms of its input and output as well. Did you subscribe that such company will go into and draft anything called contract without adequately seeking proper legal advice?
No, my advice and my view is that you must seek proper legal advice. No matter how small, you see, no matter how small the contract is, no matter how big the contract is, you must seek proper legal advice.
Right.
Because the exposure is what you are trying to avoid. The exposure when there's a breach.
Right.
The exposure when there's a frustration of the contract. That's what you're trying to avoid.
On that note, that is what you're trying to avoid. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been discussing commercial contract with Mr. Yanagoro for the past 15, 20 minutes thereabout. And the question here we're being streamlined is into contract, which is clearly a day-to-day thing we all engage into. Now, the question will be, if we engage into day-to-day activities in contract, and at what stage would we say that we are now getting into a commercial contract? Mr. Yanagoro has explained also to us in his own view that contracts could differ. Contracts that are very much technical in the sense that as long as you are going to commercial transactions, it's important that you seek advice and have a well-prepared contract before you go in. Because often at times, people go into a contract or into for services or provision of goods and services blindly, obviously with that point. And then at the stage, they find out that they realize they need to have a proper drafted up contract. And that would have been a very worst thing thereof, because the other party may say that we've already agreed orally on the terms which we need to go. And you knowing fully well that you've gone a mile away from executing the contract and executing the job, and find out that you need to protect yourself. And at that time, it's going to be too late for you to really get the two parties back again on the drawing table to bring out a very perfect piece of paper or piece of a contract that will guide your activities for the foreseeable future. Now, commercial contracts are very essential here, because the reason why is that most people would think, I'm not into a company, I'm not into provision of services, but you may be one way or the other. You may be a lawyer, you may be an accountant, you may be a surveyor, you may be an engineer, you may be or what? Provision of services. You may be providing services, you may be providing goods. And I can tell you, a statistic shows that quite a number of 60% of workforce or the businesses we have are those that provide goods and few of the services. Now, the question will be, if you fall into this category, you provide goods, how do you protect yourself? Obviously, economic area is another issue. People will say, if I decide to draft this contract, he may not want to give me that job anymore, or may not want me to carry on. He may foresee that I'm looking for to claim damages along the line. In that case, I don't want to leave it. Now, that reminds me, Mr. Yanagoro.
Law Simplified with Justice, the new informative, educative, and thought-provoking program is what you need to keep abreast with law and politics. This exciting and truly refreshing program is anchored by Justice Maduforo, a solicitor.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a soul-searching discussion here with my colleague. We've been dissecting sole responsibility under the immigration rule, those under 18 and those above 18 years of age as well.
Law Simplified with Justice understands that law is a powerful driver to human behavior. It is therefore poised to simplify the law and get you to take action.
Bring it to your doorstep and simplify it the way that you will understand.
Contact Justice by calling 07931 727 597 or email lawsimplifiedwithjustice@yahoo.co.uk. Law Simplified with Justice, bringing the best to the audience.